through for the net. Nice one. Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams here today.
Hi, this is Rupha Ramani and you're watching Firstpost. This is the last day of the year, so let's get started. Well, it's the last day and the weekend, in fact, is upon us, the last weekend of the year, and what a ride it's been. We've had a bunch of memories that we will carry on to 2024, from sporting excellence to controversies to record-breaking achievements. Today on the show, though, we look at the Indian cricket team for whom the final frontier continues to be a dream. What contributed to the humbling loss against South Africa? On to another team and another sport altogether who just aren't getting it right. What is the reason for Detroit Pistons' record-breaking slump? And of course, we round off some of our picks of defining sporting episodes of the year 2023. But first, a look at all the headlines around the world of sports in Sports 360. We'll start with cricket. Australia beat Pakistan by 79 runs in their first test match. The Baggy Greens gave Pakistan a target of 317 after Mitchell Marsh scored 96. During the chase, Pakistan were bowled out for 237 runs. Captain Pat Cummins took a fifer while Mitchell Starc picked up 4 wickets. Australia now have an unassailable 2-0 lead in the 3-match test series. The Australian women's side also enjoyed a victory. They beat India by 6 wickets in yesterday's one-day international. India batted first and scored 282 runs in 50 overs. Australia chased down the target in the 46th over itself. Phoebe Litchfield and Elisa Perry both scored half-centuries. Australia now lead the 3-match series 1-0. Over in football, West Ham United stunned Arsenal 2-0 last night. Thomas Souček scored in the 13th minute for West Ham. In the second half, the Hammers took the lead on a goal from Konstantinos Mavropanos. This was the first time in this Premier League season that Arsenal has lost a match, and that too at home. As per reports, Italian giants Inter Milan say they are on the verge of bankruptcy. This comes after the 10 board members of Inter were paid their annual compensation. The club CEO was also paid less in comparison to the previous year. Inter Milan's current owner is Chinese firm called the Suning Group, which is reportedly facing financial difficulties due to China's economic slowdown. And the prize money at the Australian Open has been increased by a whopping 13%. The total prize pool is now worth a whopping almost $60 million. The two singles champions will each pocket over $4.5 million. Last year, the winners of the Australian Open won close to $3 million. Now, India crumpled to a very humbling loss in Centurion in their first test against South Africa. It was the first time since 2010 that India had lost to South Africa by a massive margin of an innings and more. The last time it happened in 2010 was at this very same venue. Now, a post-mortem, or what went wrong, would be so very easy because hardly anything really went right for the Indian team. So rather than pick out too many instances of errors or mistakes committed on the field, the points to note or take away from here would be the larger decisions taken that affected them and, of course, the final outcome. Now, seeing that scorecard, the easy aspect to target and talk about would be, of course, the batting. India, of course, batted for far less time and overs than their opponent. But the larger concern is most definitely the bowling and some of those decisions that impacted both the bowling and the batting departments. It is with reason that we say the team that wins is one that can take 20 wickets. So let's look at India's bowling first. Mohammad Shami, the man pivotal for India's success at the ODI World Cup, couldn't make it here because of an injury. And that hit India's chances and bowling plans really hard. The first most important tool any visiting team needs in conditions that prevail in South Africa is a very strong new ball fast bowling pair. The only one who was most accurate and kept the pressure up as much as he could from one end, no surprises, was none other than Jasprit Bumrah. His comeback has been explosive and he has proved to be more difficult to navigate than ever before. But it was always going to be easy for the opposition to try to be more cautious against one bowler, knowing that the others running in do not pose a single threat. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Mohammad Siraj did beat the bat a few times in the second innings, but the precision and clinical attack did not prolong. The other two fast bowlers who were not able to sustain the pressure, Shardul Thakur, Prasidh Krishna, and that played into the South African batters' hands. That resulted in someone like Dean Elgar, who is a monster opening batter for the Proteas, especially in the longest format, to get away and provide a solid base to pile on the agony. His batting prowess and records are second only to the legendary Graham Smith. Elgar notched up his second highest individual score in Test cricket. And what was worse was that even as the South Africans continued to pile on the runs, there seemed to be a lack of inspiration or desire to try to make something happen. But we are digressing here. Let's get back to the topic at hand. We spoke about the lack of teeth in India's bowling and the miss in Shami, but what about the replacement? Prasidh Krishna has had a forgettable Test debut. Was he the right fit? Could someone like an Arshdeep Singh, who has shown the temperament of diligence and a fight, made a difference here? Well, that's a decision Indian management could think of revisiting, and it seems they have, because Avesh Khan has been called up to be a part of the squad for India's second Test against South Africa. That's happening in Cape Town. And speaking of selections in the bowling unit, going by the slight ineffectiveness of R. Ashwin in these conditions, did India miss a trick in including a wrist spinner such as Kuldeep Yadav in the mix? A Kuldeep Yadav who again has revamped himself, the 2.0 version, who is more accurate, incisive and aggressive with his bowling, and who's matured into a bowler who's not bogged down when things don't go his way. We're speaking of decisions India made ahead of this Test that could have hampered the outcome. We have heard of the phrase trial by fire. That is what results in heroes being born. But if India made a mistake in handing out Prasidh Krishna a debut here, Yashasvi Jaiswal's debut seems just as hasty. It's a baptism that has come probably a tad too early. I get where this comes from. It's akin to the baseball approach that has worked mostly for the England side in Test cricket. It's worked with Rishabh Pant and India. He's an attacking batter who maintains the same tempo and tenor even in Tests, and it's paid off. But maybe that ploy just did not work with Jaiswal up the order. Just like in South Africa, in these conditions, you need the opening bowlers to fire in and be the best you got. Your opening batters need to be your most reliable, because you are about to face some serious heat batting on pitches that test the best in the world. It is while watching Jaiswal, Shubman Gill, Shreyas Iyer struggle or get deceived or tempted to drive or go for the big shot to only succumb and fall that you really realize that this Indian outfit, this current Indian outfit, lacks the patience and that extra edge that batters like Murli Vijay, Cheteshwar Pujara and Ajinkya Rahane possessed, that produced each time they walked out to bat. These were players who could wear down any bowling opposition by just their sheer patience and power to grind it out. The second innings was another example of some of these decisions backfiring. It was an endless, painful procession of Indian batters. Some were getting done in by sheer class, like Rohit Sharma was. Rabada has his number, but that devilish delivery would be unplayable by anyone. While most threw it away, Virat Kohli was the last man to go, and he was the only one standing tall. And it's a sight that has a sense of familiarity to it. Virat despondent and walking back out as the opponents, in this case South Africa, burst into celebrations. Yes, we must look to the future. That's a thought that's always good to help a team evolve continually. But it cannot be ill-timed or at the expense of ruining one's own chances to make it to the World Test Championship final. In fact, due to a slow bowling over rate, the Indian team has not only been fined, but has more importantly been docked 2 WC points. Now, in sports, breaking records is considered a massive milestone. But if you're the Detroit Pistons, then you're hoping for the opposite. Sounds strange, because the Detroit Pistons broke the NBA's record for the most consecutive losses in a single season. The Pistons have lost 28 games in a row this season. Yep, 28. They are now tied with the 2014-2015 Philadelphia 76ers for the most back-to-back losses in NBA history at 28. And anyone who has been following basketball carefully can tell you that the signs were always there. The fall of the Pistons has been a few years in the making. They've not fared well when drafting new players. They have made some questionable rosters and management decisions. The team has been plagued with quite a few injuries, and now their luck has run out. The Pistons started off their season well. They registered back-to-back wins in their second and third games. They beat the Charlotte Hornets and the Chicago Bulls, and then things went downhill. They've lost every game since and are now tied at 28 with the most consecutive losses in NBA history. So how does the team feel about their season? There is one sentiment which is common between the players and the coaches. They both say that the losing record is not something any of them really want to be associated with.
When you look at records, you think of coaches, you know what I mean? But I'm sure the players don't want that attached to the name on the jersey. And was it, heavy? It's been heavy for a while. It's just the nature of this kind of losing streak. And, it's not going to change because we're grading the level of it. We got to do what we got to do to change it.
The players are taking it with their heads held high, yes, almost because they've hit rock bottom, and they know it because once you're at the bottom, the only way, hopefully, is up.
Don't jump off the boat. We got to stay together. Right now is the easiest time to stand off and be on your own, but we need to continue to lean on each other and continue to push each other and hold each other accountable more than ever now.
There is some confidence and positive talk there. Seems difficult with the world talking about how you are the worst side in NBA. One can only imagine how silent the dressing room for the Pistons must be. However, they are not being forgiven by their poor show, at least not by the fans like we are saying. Social media is an outright meme fest. People are openly making money by betting how many more games the Pistons will lose. Sounds terrible. Yes, you can bet on when the Pistons will next win a match. That's what they're doing. If you thought that would take the icing on the cake, then hold on, there's a bit more. Fans of other teams and from other countries are purposefully flying over to the US to attend games that the Pistons are playing just to see them lose. Even when the Pistons play at home, they have no support from the crowd. They are booed in every match. The last game the Pistons played at home, the crowds chanted, "Sell the team." But the Pistons are taking it on the chin. They're taking full ownership of their performance.
You have to be real about where we are. Nobody wants something like this attached to them. The bottom line is it's my job. It's my responsibility. When you look at the record, coaches are graded on their records. That's the bottom line.
But what's interesting is that the Detroit Pistons weren't always such a bad team. In the early 2000s, they were one of the most consistent and dominant sides. They even won the title in 2004. Now, 20 years later, they find themselves on the opposite side of the spectrum. The Pistons next play the Toronto Raptors at home. If they do not win the next match, we will see history being rewritten, with the Pistons setting a new record for the longest losing streak in NBA history. As the coaches and players have already said, it's a record no athlete would ever want to be associated with. We're sure the players don't want that infamous tag or record associated with them, but what we are certain of is that the fans and social media is definitely keeping all its eyes on this one. 2023 has finally drawn to an end, and it was one of the most action-packed years for sports. As we get ready to ring in the new year, we want to relive some of the top moments of sporting excellence, as well as moments that define the sporting landscape world over. So we have moments that were historic, like a World Cup win, moments that were controversial, like a kiss without consent, biggest comeback wins that left our jaws drop in awe, moments only superhumans could achieve, and much more. Here's the ultimate rewind. We can only imagine what next year has in store.
It was the 28th minute. Olga Carmona was given a rolling pass into the penalty box, and a neat finish from a left foot saw the ball back into the net. 70 minutes later, Spain were crowned world champions as they beat England 1-0. This was Spain's first ever Women's World Cup, and nothing could have ruined it except for this man, Luis Rubiales. Spain were enjoying their World Cup win. They were dancing with their coach, and then the Football Federation chief Rubiales joined the festivities too. But instead of celebrating the win, he forcefully kissed Jenny Hermoso on her lips. taking away the spotlight from the women's team performance. There was a massive outrage across the world. There were protests in Spain. Rubiales was sacked and then banned from football for 3 years. Hermoso had to lay low for a while and was almost sidelined from the national team's call-up. It was this moment that put the highlight on creating a safe space for women athletes. World number 1 Novak Djokovic was all set to win the Davis Cup for his country, Serbia. He was carrying on with his good form after winning the ATP Masters, except there was an Italian who was plotting to be spoilsport. And that's exactly what Jannik Sinner did. 22-year-old Sinner beat Djokovic in singles and also won the doubles match. Sinner led Italy to win their first Davis Cup since 1976, and he instantly became a hero in Italy.
It's a thrill, and then it's beautiful. Sinner is at the top right now, so it's a beautiful moment.
Sinner will now be back in court against Djokovic in January next year. The two could face each other in the Australian Open. The IPL auction just ended and we saw some record-breaking numbers. Mitchell Starc became the costliest player in IPL auction history. Starc will now play for the Kolkata Knight Riders, and there's one power player in the Kolkata team that deserves a mention. It is Rinku Singh. During a group stage between Gujarat Titans and the Kolkata Knight Riders, Rinku Singh was on crease in the final over. Kolkata needed 28 runs to win from 5 deliveries. It was Yash Dayal of the Gujarat Titans who was tasked to stop Rinku Singh. But what we saw was an onslaught of sixes. The left-handed batter smashed the ball out of the ground one after the other. Rinku Singh managed to pull off 5 big ones in a row to see Kolkata to an unbelievable victory and carve one of the most stunning cameos in IPL history. It was the third quarter. The Los Angeles Lakers were trailing behind the Oklahoma City Thunder. The ball was with LeBron James, who shot a fadeaway to score 2 points. At that moment, LeBron broke Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record and became the highest scorer in NBA history. And what a moment it was, because Abdul-Jabbar was present on the sidelines and immediately went up to LeBron to congratulate him. The Laker was given a standing ovation, for LeBron had broken a record that dates back almost 40 years. LeBron now has over 39,000 points and has no plans on slowing down anytime soon, reiterating the legend that he is turning out to be. As we say goodbye to this year, there's one comeback story that cannot be slept on. During the 5,000-meter race at the Asian Games, Indian runner Parul Chaudhary was in second place when the bell for the final lap was rung. Chaudhary was trailing Japan's Hironaka Ririka and was almost stride to stride with her. There was a point when the Japanese runner created a sizable lead over Chaudhary. The Japanese runner entered the final 100-meter with a lead. It was at that moment that Parul Chaudhary did the unthinkable. She sprinted like her life depended on it. Nearing the finish line, Chaudhary gave in a sudden burst that no one saw coming, nudging past the Japanese runner. It was a sight that gave goosebumps to everyone watching. Parul's adrenaline push won her and India the gold in the 5,000-meter race. If there's inspiration you need to enter the new year, take it from Parul Chaudhary. From Pat Cummins leading Australia to victory at the ODI World Cup, to South Africa winning Rugby World Cup, 2023 surely was a year for sporting champions.
Speaking of champions, Rafael Nadal is finally back on the court. He was seen practicing in Brisbane as he gears up to play in the Australian Open next. Nadal's presence was truly missed for almost a year. For today's last serve, here's Nadal practicing his famous inside-out forehand. Definitely can't wait to see Rafael Nadal make it on court very, very soon. But for now, thank you so much for watching First Sports. I'll of course see you in the next year. Advance wishes for a happy 2024. Take care. Bye-bye.